Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Blockcast with your hosts Will and Simon. End of year episode. Simon, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about our top 5 worst and top 5 best things of 2022.
Indeed, Simon, 2022 was a bit of a crazy year.
It was a painful year. Like, anybody who'd been in the space and not been through 2018 would have found this year excruciating.
It's almost like we topped everything in terms of achievements and also really bad things. So why don't we start with the bad stuff?
Yeah, I think so. Let's start with the negative and finish on the positive, hey?
Yeah.
All right, so first up, that was the theory that the institutions are coming. There was always the big push for this bull market that the institutions were going to come, we're going to see huge inflows of money, and the prices were going to skyrocket. And I don't think we really got that. I don't think the institutions really came. We had Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy come, and they really pushed it. We had Tesla come as well, which I guess is pretty big in itself, but we didn't have the masses. You know, there was promise of all these institutions converting over their money into Bitcoin as a treasury. MicroStrategy pretty much did it. Tesla basically did it, and that was about it.
What do you think went wrong there?
I think that people weren't ready. People still didn't understand it, and I think we didn't have regulation to make it safe for these companies to do that. So many institutions just said, too hard, don't want to know about it.
Which actually brings us to the next point, which is hacks. Seasoned users got hacked as well. More than $2 billion in 2022 in DeFi services and bridges happened this year. For example, Wormhole Bridge had a hack for $325 million. Bridges are a really difficult thing to create and manage and secure. So $2 billion hacked, but the good thing is that we've at least learned.
$2 billion hacked is not great. Is there solutions going forward?
Oh yeah, there's definitely people working on better bridges. The problem is that when you build a bridge, when you build any DeFi service, you have the code open source. So anybody can look at it, anybody can scrutinize it. And what happens when you do that is that hackers as well can do that, and they can easily spot the weaknesses. So when hackers find this weakness, they obviously take advantage of it. Sometimes you're really lucky and it's a white hat. A white hat will just withdraw funds to get your attention and then return them, and you know the weakness and you fix it. If it's a black hat, what happens is they take the money and never be seen again. But the good thing is that they do expose weaknesses. And so once different bridges see this, they immediately compensate for the weakness. So hopefully going forward, we're going to see new bridges coming up that are more secure.
That's good, because they have been known as the biggest weakest point in all of crypto at the moment. So we definitely need to improve that. All right, so on to number 3. Everybody who's been in crypto would know about this, and this is the Terra Luna crash. So it was a very, very spectacular fall from grace for Luna and its stablecoin UST. We had people that were way too excited, myself included, to be honest, about the 20% yield that you're getting from UST. But the algorithmic stablecoin was unstable, and it was tied to the price of Luna. And we saw the bank run that occurred, and the bank run proved that the algorithm worked fine. But once people started losing faith in it and started selling it out, there was no buyers in place to hold it up. There was no way the price of Luna could hold it up. So when it started depeg, Luna did deploy their capital to try and maintain the peg, but it was too far gone. The bank run was happening and everyone was terrified and was all trying to get out. Dismal failure by multiple parties.
What else failed?
So we are down to number 2. This was obviously somewhat off the back of Luna because they lost a lot of their liquidity there, and this is Celsius Network. And the company slogan, I remember seeing this t-shirt, banks are not your friends. Basically, trust Celsius, not the banks. And I think the thing that we've learned is that if you don't know where the yield is coming from, then you should be worried.
So how did the yield work? Did they invest it in different DeFi protocols? Did they take on too much risk? What happened?
Yeah, it's basically all those things. They obviously weren't necessarily storing, if you gave them Bitcoin, they weren't storing Bitcoin one for one for you. They were selling it and converting it to something else they could earn a yield on. Either as simple as just converting your Bitcoin to wrap Bitcoin and moving that to Ethereum to earn yield on it. But they somehow had to manage, more than 6% yield of your Bitcoin. So a lot of the time it was selling it to another asset and trying to earn yield on it. And so they were tied up. They had some money in Luna, but they were doing all sorts of crazy, DeFi, degen kind of work. 2022, when everything started going pear-shaped, they couldn't earn those yields. They didn't have the money there anymore, so they were paying out more than they were earning. And all of a sudden, bank run occurred on them based off Luna as well. And they found themselves with actually no money left to pay off their customers. Yeah, but I think it's CeFi can't be trusted. We've learned that.
Definitely not. All right, so I think the big one, Simon, is FTX and Sam Bankman.
Yeah, definitely. This is our number one swap for many reasons, and this was just sad that this occurred. It made me really upset that we had one of our biggest exchanges in the entire world just turn out to be entirely fraudulent. And this is not a failure of crypto. This was a failure of a person specifically, and probably multiple people within the company, really, because it couldn't have just been Sam that knew what was going on, but to be just blatantly stealing from people, that's hurt crypto so much. It set us back a long way, and then the market manipulation that they were doing based off so many things that they were doing with customers' money, the story just kept unfolding. I actually just had to stop listening to the stories. It was so bad.
Oh yeah, and they brought down a whole bunch of other businesses with them. Solana is affected as well. I'm a big fan of Solana, but thanks to Sam Bankman, Solana has been affected.
Can it continue that now without Sam there? I hope so, especially for the people that are building in Solana, but we just don't know.
Yeah.
So we've gone through the bad. Now let's talk about the good. I think from the best of 2022 is that NFTs, which were definitely a fad of 2021, and we're definitely headed towards an ICO kind of thing in 2017 as a complete and utter failure. To change from an NFT as a JPEG to an NFT with utility has been a big shift in the market, and that's continued through all of 2022. And I think we're learning the lesson that art is great, and there are definitely going to be elements of art for NFTs. It's not enough to be a sustainable investment. It's not enough to be sustainable going forward, because we just can't have all these random pictures being valuable. There's no market for that.
Yeah, indeed, Simon. So far, NFTs have just been used as pictures, but then there's so much else that they could be used for. And there's all of these projects out there with interesting use cases. Some of them have been NFTs with information that could be revealed later. So there's a lot of things you can do with that. For example, an NFT could be a picture, yes, but you could also have a winning lottery number in it.
Yeah, and there was a really cool, I think it was an Adidas one. It was one of the shoe companies where they had their NFT and it morphed into different NFTs over time. And if you bought the original and it morphed over time, you got actual real world things from Adidas. That's kind of cool utilities. And the other ones are like accesses to places, accesses to groups, access to venues, concerts, kind of that kind of thing.
There's also NFTs that manage your identity. So they might have your name, your address, different aspects about you. And they're specifically tied to your address, and they're called soulbound tokens. What about decentralized exchange? Uniswap has been there for a long time. Have we seen anything else come up?
Definitely. So definitely based off the fact that we've lost faith in a lot of our centralized entities and our CeFi entities, the decentralized exchanges have become really good, because at the end of the day, people still want to gamble to a degree, and people love leverage. So the rises of your GMX and your Gains network, those decentralized exchanges which allow futures trading and leverage trading, they have done extremely well during this bear market. Like, they are pushing back towards their all-time highs. When everything else is 90% down, those ones are actually fairly comparable to their all-time highs. So they've been performing extremely well for people who hold those tokens.
I just want self-custody to come back. I want to be able to handle my own money, and I want to have an exit in the economy as an option. It's nice to have an option to get off the dollar if you can.
What a great segue into number 3 as well. Number 3, the good things of 2022 is that self-custody has become far more prominent now. Everybody has learnt that CeFi and exchanges are not the place to keep your crypto. So we have had a huge learning curve for people in the crypto space to get their money off exchanges. I'm very sorry for people who lost all their money on FTX, but what is positive and is good is that everyone is taking self-custody. I've heard Ledger and Trezor's sales going through the roof. Good for them. And it's great for the industry that everyone's like, hang on, let's go back to the basics of what crypto is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be trustless.
Yep.
And we're going back to that ethos of not your keys,
not your crypto.
And we forgot that this basketball market. We started trusting again, and we've all been burnt for trusting people. So self-custody has really come back to the rise. I'm really happy with that. And that's risen, these decentralized exchanges as well, but it's great positivity for the future.
So I think another thing is that so we usually notice when things don't work. So we've talked about FTX, but then what we don't notice is when things run perfectly. So I think a big one is that most of DeFi worked. It worked perfectly.
Number two of the good things of 2022, DeFi worked exactly how it was supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
It protected the people who were supplying the assets. So it protected the depositors. People got liquidated in all these DeFi applications, sure, because they're over leveraged. That was supposed to happen. That is supposed to happen. But people knew where their money was being used, how it was being used, and there was an exit. The systems liquidated people who were over leveraged, protected the depositors.
Yeah, no, that's the beauty of DeFi. So projects like Aave have been around for a couple of years now, and they're big honeypot. There's a lot of TVL in them, and yet they haven't been hacked, and we can tell that so far they're safe. And it's a big deal. It actually worked, and that is beautiful. That is super exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Aave, your compounds, all these places where you can earn a yield on. You can see, based on the smart contracts, where the yield is coming from. Unlike Celsius, where you didn't know where the yield was coming from, it was crazy amounts. CeFi failed, DeFi really worked.
That's right, Simon. So what do you think is the biggest positive for 2022?
The ETH merge. Again, you might have a better perspective of this, but technically it was a huge achievement to go from proof of work to proof of stake seamlessly.
That's a massive achievement, Simon. And I was reading today that Ethereum hasn't really had any downtime at all since it started. I think Bitcoin has had 2 downtimes before 2015, but if I'm not mistaken, Ethereum has had 100% uptime. And so now this is an even a bigger achievement. They changed from proof of work to proof of stake, and Ethereum is still going, and that's a huge deal. And what does that mean?
Well, from my perspective, the investment kind of perspective, now we've got this incredibly strong use case asset. The utility of Ethereum is enormous, but now it is a yielding asset. So we can earn yield on our Ethereum. The other really massive thing was it's not necessarily the merge, but it was the EIP 11559 with the burning of Ethereum during transactions, but now with the less issuance because of the ETH merge and proof of stake and the EIP 1559, the burn, there's only been like 4,000 Ethereum created since then.
That's huge.
Massive shock on supply.
Because that was one of the biggest criticisms that Bitcoin maximalists had against Ethereum. I think both are good, but Bitcoin maximalists used to say that Ethereum is going to inflate to infinity. I guess that's not the case anymore, right?
Not the case. No, definitely not. Well, it very well could still inflate, but it's such a small amount now compared to when it was a proof of work. But if the volume picks up and the burn keeps occurring, there are periods of time where it could go back to deflationary. But that's a huge crush on supply. You've got to take that into perspective. But since September, Ethereum price has been down, but we are down with 1.2 million less Ethereum out in the marketplace. And I think just the asset going forward, it makes it such a more bullish asset in my mind.
Hat tip to all the coders and everybody who's been contributing to Ethereum. And I guess that's it for the list. And so
that's 2022 for us,
It's the Wild West.
It is the Wild West, but I think we've been through enough this year that 2023 surely is better, right?
I hope so. Well, here's to 2023.
Cheers. Thanks, Will.
It's a good show.